Okay, time to take a nice bath. I'm gonna put my clothes. Oh well, I'll just put it on the floor where it's gonna get wet, like always. Or maybe I can make a little bath stool so it doesn't have to go on the ground. And ideally, I have a lot of old stock lying around, especially big pine boards like this one, plus some extra ones left over from other projects. These ones I've already flattened, but these ones definitely will need some cleaning up. Righto, so as always, first we'll have to flatten all the panels and make them square, and to remove all the twist that might be present. I don't have boards wide enough to make up the legs, so in this case I will have to join some boards together to get the correct width. Here I'm planing the boards together to make a good fit when I'm gluing them up together. Once the two pieces have been prepared, it's time for glue up for each of the two legs. While I'm waiting for the glue to set, it's time to flatten the big piece of pine wood here. This will form the seat at the end of the day. This is basically what they call raw wood, so there's quite a lot of knots in it, which makes it quite irritating to flatten, but it can be done easily. Here I'm crisscrossing over the board with my scrub plane to remove the majority of waste. After that, I will go vertically over the board to complete the process. With the small metal scrub plane, it's actually surprisingly easy. It looks like I'm using a lot of force, but in reality I'm just gliding over the wood and taking a lot of shavings off. After I remove the majority of the stock with the scrub plane, it is time to smooth the board using just a normal plane and to get to the desired flatness and thickness that I want at the end of the day. Here I'm checking for twist in the board using my winding sticks. Any twist I will then flatten afterwards to get the board nice and flat. These corners were identified as the high spots with the winding sticks, so here I'm flattening them on each side and then rechecking for flatness and for twist every time until the board is flat as desired. Once I've established a primary surface that's flat, it's time to square up the sides of the board to that surface, as you can see here. With the sides squared up, the last step is now to square up the end pieces of the board. I check for squareness using the primary side of the board as well as the first side I use to square with the primary side, as you can see here. And then adjusting accordingly to where I see it's still not flat, until I get a good result at the end of the day. With the seat completed, I can now resume work on the legs after cleaning them up. Here I'm sawing out tenons that's going to be inserted into the base of the seat to make a nice and strong fit. Each leg is going to be slanted where it connects to the base of the seat. Here I'm sawing out the angles that I draw on each leg. I'm also sawing out a gap in the middle of each leg to make 2 feet that will connect to the ground. This will make rocking easier at the end of the day for the seat or the legs. Once all the sawing is done, it's time to clean up all the sides of each of the legs to make it nice and smooth. The same is also for the gap that I made at the bottom of each feet. Here I'm using a chisel to flatten the saw marks that's left over. With the shape of the feet done, I can now finish the tenons of each leg that will join to the base of the seat. Here I'm chopping out the mortises at the bottom of the seat that will correspond to the tenons of the feet for each side. With the mortise and tenons done, it's time to do a dry fit just to see if everything fits perfectly together before final glue up at the end of the day. And as you can see here, a nice and tight fit. I'm also adding mortises at the bottom side of the feet. This will be for the crossbar, or rather the cross plank that will join the feet together. This is for 2 purposes. One is to strengthen the seat so it doesn't rock or bend the legs, and the second is to add a place where I can store clothes or shoes or any other item underneath the seat so it doesn't get wet. Here I'm just drilling holes to add pegs to reinforce it at the end of the day. As a last step, I'm just adding a trim to the front of each leg so that it's easier for anybody to see which side must be the front and which side will be the back at the end of the day. Righto, and with all of that done, it's time to do the final glue up. I've already glued in the cross plank at the bottom of each leg, and now that's just remaining is to glue up each of the legs to the bottom of the seat, as you can see here. Some clamps just to make sure I get a nice and tight fit all over until the glue sets. The last step is just to drill through the sides of the feet into the crossbar after the glue has set and to add pins to it. As I said earlier, this is just to help reinforce the joint, as I didn't make through mortise and tenon joints for the bottom part. The idea at the end of the day is to add a base coat of oil enamel paint to the seat. However, before I'm going to do that, I'm first going to add a coat of teak oil, as you see here, to the seat and wait for it to dry thoroughly before adding the paint. And here you can see how it looks like after I've added some of the enamel paint all over the seat. It's an oil-based enamel paint, so it's nice and hard, and from past experience I know this paint holds up against exposure to moisture and water as a barrier. And here is the bathroom seat after the oil has dried over a few days. And with all of that done, let's give it a test. So first we place it into position so it's not in the way of the door. So we have ample space there. And as you can see here, you can put a towel, you can put our clothes here, or whatever other items you want to put away from the floor and not get splashed on by water. Also, at the end of the day, it's a seat, so you can also sit on it while drying or tying your shoes or whatever you want to do. Thank you for watching, everybody. Hopefully I'll see you again in the next video. Cheers!